Alfie is a WOR race winner.
Jensen makes it 5 in a row.
Danny Berejnay wins on debut.
Shinaka returns to winning ways in WOR.
Season 12 sees a new man. It's Shadow. He is your Xbox champion.
And Jensen is the new king of PlayStation.
From the back row of the grid, against all odds, Nicholas Longy wins the title.
Goes past the safety car.
What has gone on here?
Firman spins.
Stunning move from the Spaniard.
He's taken out Rambo. Here comes Longy.
We're going 4 wide down to turn 1.
Oh, he's taking him out.
The captain rivals complete.
Tomek to the inside.
Shadow wins at Brazil.
Absolutely sensational.
Konnichiwa and happy Halloween, everybody. Welcome to WR Tier 1. We are at the Japanese Grand Prix Suzuka for round 11 here, and we are currently on the standing screen. We'll show you our scary faces for Halloween very, very shortly. It's not scary at all, but I am joined by the wonderful Steve again this week in the comms box, where we hope for some incredible action in Tier 1, just like last week, Steve, don't we?
Yeah, we do. Ryan Jacobs 2.0 is back, everyone. Nice to be back for a second week running. But yeah, Japan is going to throw up an amazing race probably today. The difference in sexes is amazing, and especially through the likes of the S's, and then you go into the likes of Spoon Curve and then 130R. It's going to be all about driver skill today, and I really do feel like we could maybe have a surprise winner today if the weather does throw up a surprise like last week.
Let's hope a little bit of a wet weather to spice things up a little bit. We do love spicing things up. However, Otis Lawrence is leading the way. Surely the championship is not too far away from him now. Smokey Wilson and Cider all are the other challengers to him, and they're a little bit far off, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like a 68-point lead between Otis and Smokey, so that is a huge deficit to make up, and we've only got 5 rounds left because, of course, Abu Dhabi was pushed back due to the PSGL WR event. So, I mean, there is still a possibility if Otis has bad races, but it's Otis at the end of the day. I don't think he's actually not scored points this season, so Otis should surely have this in the bag, but Wilson v Smokey is starting to sort of heat up a bit after the win for Wilson last week. So we can maybe see that go down to the wire, a bit like real life F1 where the title was clinched up, but that second place battle is raging on all the way to the end.
Definitely is, and you know, Cider, after a pretty strong start to the season, has obviously took that victory in Monza a few weeks ago as well. That was a very entertaining race, but he's had some, you know, poor races as well. You know, I don't know if it's Australia and Britain he doesn't like, but there was no decent point scoring there, and also Spain cost him big time as well. But yeah, it's looking interesting. I don't think there has been a point this season where Otis has finished outside the top 5, and I think that in itself is quite an amazing stat.
I mean, yeah, that is an amazing stat. Not outside the top 5 through like the 11 rounds we've had, and especially in a tier like this where it's very competitive and everyone's very close. It's just outstanding to see. You never thought anyone could do that in a WR. You surely would think there'll be a DNF at some point, but that consistency so far is why he is pretty much the best driver on Xbox, I think.
Right now, I don't think there's anyone better. However, they are going out on track now, so let's get on to the action and see what is going on. And apparently, it could be that everything's a little bit skewed, so let's try and get this to actually fit the screen instead of it being absolutely huge. That's a little bit awkward on the screen. But anyway, Piccolo is going to be the first person to set a lap time. To start a lap time, I should say, because he might invalidate as he's going down into 130R now. And that is probably, I don't want to say the trickiest part of the track, because it's definitely not. But if you're trying to go side by side with someone there, it's going to be very, very tricky.
Yeah, it certainly will be. I mean, one of you will have to back out due to the speed of that corner. He will probably understeer into the other driver, but it is such a high-speed corner. You sort of don't even think about it in these cars at the moment. But if you're side by side, it's got to be a back-out game, or you're going to crash and maybe give yourself either a quali ban or a time penalty at the end of the race after stewarding if you don't. And yeah, 130R, it's going to be a tough corner to stick behind some drivers at, and it's going to be a huge place to pick up penalties and invalidations during the course of today.
Yeah, there's lots of points that the hairpin as well. I think in league racing, we don't usually see a track like this that has so many overtaking opportunities. I think really this track has so many outside of the norm of a proper F1 race, if we say it's like that, because you can make overtakes pretty much anywhere on this track apart from 130R.
Yeah, I mean, you can make it through the S's, turn 1, spoon curve, the hairpin, the chicane at the end. You can overtake pretty much anywhere around this circuit, and I think that's what makes it special as well, about how many opportunities you do actually have. You don't have to just wait for DRS or just one certain point on the circuit to make your move. But Piccolo does set a 29.0, but this track is also special because you go back over yourself over the bridge, and I mean, it's an absolutely amazing track here, Suzuka, and I hope it stays on the real life F1 calendar for many years to come.
Yeah, you quite rightly mentioned the only figure of 8 circuit on the calendar, I think, right now, and that in itself is special. And we've had so many great races here in the past in real life F1 as well as league racing action, as we see Cyther now coming down through the Casio Triangle into the last curve corner here. And let's see what he can do in comparison to everyone else. It's a 29 dead there. So nowhere near to Otis in comparison, who's done a 28.4. Choco's done a great time, a 28.5, just being beaten by Smokey there. So sometimes really coming in thick and fast for some of these guys. PSR Sav, good to see him back on the track, because I don't think he was here last week. As I think that is Venom's. Is that putting himself into P6 as well? So it's very, very interesting, and I mentioned PSR Sav, and he's invalidated his lap time. So let's go on board with Nick. I'm just trying to think who is. It's not possible for Otis Lawrence to win today. However, if he wins today, I think it really puts pressure on other people.
Yeah, it certainly will. To try keep this championship alive. It is pretty much an impossible task if you think of it, but I mean, if Otis wins today, he puts himself in prime position to take the championship in the next few rounds. But it would definitely put a lot of pressure on the likes of Smokey and Wilson to push as hard as possible, really, and race as hard as they can to try make sure Otis doesn't win it before the final round. But with a 68, I think it's either 68 or 65 point lead. I mean, it's surely Otis's at the moment, and yeah, with the pace and consistency he's on, nothing will stop him at the moment, it seems.
So even if, I mean, 5 rounds remaining, 68 points, I think it's impossible for him to even have the possibility next. No, it is possible for next week's race for him to take the win, but he's got to get through this race first. F1, anything can happen. WOR, anything really does happen. But at the moment, you know, Otis 28.4 leading the way, and will be interesting to see if he can go into the 27s tonight. Peter Sarkona then, who seemed to have a resurgence this latter half of the season. He's done really, really well, especially in that WOR PSGL event. It would be really interesting to see how he can handle the pressure, or continued pressure he's got on him, and see how he can do for tonight's race.
Yeah, Connor is a very quick driver, obviously, and he's had some very good races over the past few weeks as he now heads into the Casio Triangle, and now on to the exit. Let's see what he can do through the final curve on the circuit. It's P3, so a very good lap time there for Connor, actually, and putting himself up there for a shout for pole position already after the sort of praises we gave to him just a minute ago. And he's had a brilliant second half of the season, and I feel like if he had that form at the start, he could have definitely been within a shout of getting that P2, P3 spot in the championship. Yeah,
he's thrown himself into the top 10 now. I'm sure he will be wanting more strong performances, the Ferrari driver. It looks like, however, we have lost FRA Matthew from the season. It's just not gone well for him, and he has departed, and that's such a shame, because he was almost the nearly man, unfortunately, this season. He showed some great paces. It just never seemed to turn out right for him.
No, I mean, he had that one race win in Britain. I think he actually got taken off him after stewarding. I can't really recall it correctly, but I mean, he had a really good race at Britain, but that's the only race he sort of has had so far this season that's been sort of he's showing his talent. But I mean, it's very unfortunate what's happened this season. You get some good seasons, you get some bad ones, so hopefully next season he'll come back even stronger and fight for the championship once more. But this season's been very tough on him, and it's a shame he's missing the rest of the season.
Yeah, such a shame for him, but that is unfortunately the way the cookie crumbles on that side. And we are on board with Finn Bob now as he comes into the hairpin. He's got one of the slowest times on the board at the moment. He's probably going to, he's going to want to improve on that quite a bit, and we'll see how that happens as he comes through into Spoon now, or just before Spoon, in the AlphaTauri. See how he can produce and maybe show the tier 1 guys how quick he can really go.
Yeah, last week I think he had a decent race in Singapore, so we certainly want to try keep that up and show everyone what he can really do at the moment. But as well, Placky is quite far down the order at the moment at the start, but they're only setting their bankers, so just trying to get a delta of time. Finn Bob is 1.1 up in the middle sector, so across the line he comes. It's P6 for Finn Bob, so a very good lap there from the AlphaTauri driver. And I mean, the final runs will surely be quicker if he doesn't invalidate. And everyone, I say, in the top 7, top 8 is definitely still within a shout for pole, because this track you can find so much time lap after lap. It's an unreal circuit in qualifying for that.
Yellow flag for some reason out on track, but Placky is coming through the Casio Triangle around the last corner now. The Mercedes driver, teammate to the championship leader, and across the line it's only P10 for him, a 28.831. for the Mercedes driver. He's, well, going to be hoping for much more than that. I think Piccolo might very well be on a lap now, but there's another yellow flag on track. Hopefully people aren't causing too many problems out there. Choco's not put himself up. Was it Scyther getting himself into P5? Sorry. So he's found a little bit of pace with 7 minutes left of the session remaining. Wilson, well, everyone pretty much out on a lap apart from Choco now. Amin's put himself P4, so the time's tumbling a little bit.
Yeah, track evolution around this circuit is key. As I said, you can find so much time in one lap, and with the track evolution as well, it just boosts the overall grip you have on the circuit. So, Wilson up in the first sector by about a tenth so far in this updated Alpine. Updated most cars on the grid with new liveries. As Otis Lawrence, a 28-1. No surprises there. Goes about 3 tenths clear of second place, as Leopard actually promotes himself up into P2. Leopard, I don't think he turned up the last race, and now is within a good shout of pole position. And Wilson up into P4, also in the 28-4s, as there's 3 drivers there, separated by just over half a tenth.
That is ridiculously close between second to fourth. Leopard is obviously the best of the rest of the grid outside that top 4 at the moment, and not had the best of lucks, unfortunately, in the season as a whole. Really missing out on some performances, not down to his own fault. Shizou Venom then running on the track, and then into the pits goes the Ferrari driver. It looks like he was going to set a lap time. Is Bobbitt's going to perform a lap time for us? He is massively down on his lap time, so I assume not. Lucas has invalidated. Let's go on board with Axe F1, yet to set a lap time, down in 20th place, the Williams driver. Let's see how he can work. Into Degna 1 he comes. Looks pretty solid so far from the Williams driver. He's been one of those hit and miss drivers throughout the season. I've already said that about a few drivers, but he's looked absolutely competitive at some circuits, and then in others he just doesn't look like the same driver.
Yeah, he was good at Silverstone, and he was actually good last week, especially in the qualifying, until it all sort of unravelled a bit in the race. But yeah, he was quite good last week in qualifying, and it just didn't work out in the race. I think he was caught up in an incident at one point, but as he now goes through Spoon Curve nicely and heading up into 130R, what is his middle sector? An 11.9. I think that's actually a quite decent middle sector to put him up into about that top 10. Is now into the final chicane, braking at 100 metres, going down the third gear, using as much of the Tuca in apex curves as possible. Now across the line, what would it be for Axe? It's P6 for the Williams, a 28.545, and the times are oh so close between most of the drivers on the field here. And the top 12 separated by about, not top 12, about 5th to 12th, sorry, 2 tenths of a second. No, scrap that. It's a 13th, about 2 tenths of a second.
That's pretty solid work, and to be honest, it's 4 tenths of a second between second and 16th, so, or just over. So yeah, some incredible lap times being set by these guys. Obviously, Otis Lawrence at the moment has the measure of everybody else. Lucas, I think, has invalidated his lap time, so he will be going into the pit lane. His teammate, however, Finn Bob, is starting his final run. PS Arthur Fern is just about to start his final run. So we're going to see the track get very, very busy soon. Hopefully this doesn't impede Fern as he comes through onto his final lap, because a lot of cars are starting to come out of the pits now.
Yeah, that final chicane and 130R will be absolutely clogged up with traffic if he doesn't time this right as he's about to start his lap. And yeah, traffic will play a big factor at the end of this qualifying session here for some of these drivers. Everyone will just try to find space on the circuit to really get the gaps and have a clean lap. As you see, that Fern's already caught up a bit of traffic, but luckily enough for him, he'll only have a Mercedes up the road of Placky, so he has sort of got hit a lucky spot here where he doesn't really have any traffic in front of him as he heads through the first sector now. And that's probably the most important part, where you don't want any traffic at all through this first sector. It's so tight and twisty, it's very hard to get out of the way of the other drivers, and he set a 32.3 first sector. An actual alright first sector there from Fern, all over the curb there on the exit of Degner 2, as he now heads up into the hairpin, as he just about gets that car stopped nicely, maybe a bit far from the apex, but as he now heads down through the right-hander and into Spoon Curve, going to brake here just after the 50-meter board, use all the track available, and then this corner is a real pain on the traction on the exit of Spoon Curve, as due to the camber, your car does like to spin round, but he does have Placky up in front going slowly. It's a 12.2 in the middle sector, so he's not as quick as we saw Axe go earlier on in that middle sector, as he now heads in to the final chicane, which will then lead him on to the final corner, and he backs out of it, so Fern will be starting last in this Japanese Grand Prix session.
We're going to see some sort of last to first challenge from him. I'm not sure, but I've just gone on board with Finn Bob, and he's spun it. He has spun it at the hairpin and the exit. He is not going to be any higher than 11th unless he's able to get himself back around and start a lap. But his tyres are probably going to be screaming. He probably won't want to do that at all. Placky, where are you on track? You are just coming into Degner 1 and 2. We'll stay on board with one Mercedes driver and then go on board with the other one as they start or finish their lap, as I think it will be only right to go on board with Otis Lawrence and see one of his laps here at Japan, because it's looking like a monumentous effort from anyone to beat him tonight.
Yeah, it certainly will be. It'll be absolutely a brilliant effort from if anyone can beat him so far. But as you can see, the new halo on the Mercedes, it doesn't look as chunky anymore. It's just a clean little black and sort of turquoisey blue halo there, as we now head down into turn 1. Double apex gone a bit, I don't know if that's on purpose or just he's racing line. He goes a bit wide through turn 1. It actually sets him up nicely for the rest of the S section, as he can carry much more momentum now through these corners. Now up through Dunlop, very nicely done from Otis. What is his first sector? He's up by 66 thousandths of a second. So now through Degner 2, try not to straddle that curb too much, or you're sort of going to be pirouetting round as Amin goes into P6, which is beaten by Connor, who goes up into P5. As now through the right hander, this is just flat out, keep as tight to that inside as possible, as you want to set yourself up as nicely as possible for Spoon Curve. Smokey goes up into P2 of a 28.3. So Otis now heading up into 130R over the, I think this is the GT grid there, as Finn Bob's been disqualified for driving the wrong way. Otis is up by a 10th and 28 thousandths, I think I saw there, as now over the final chicane. He uses so much curb and broke so late into that chicane. Didn't lose him any time as he crosses the line. No, a tiny bit, but it's a 28.088, and what a lap there from Otis. Yeah, he was sort of not really in that pole position, second to pole position contention for that whole session. He just pulls it out the bag, Nick, there. And I mean, I saw him earlier on, I think it was this week or it was last week, and in a different league, and he was challenging Otis. And yeah, I mean, Nick, second place, he was nowhere, as it's actually Leopard gets a 5 grid penalty for illegal blocking, and that must have been his AI in the way of someone, and that's an unfortunate grid penalty there for Leopard, a bit of an unusual one. And again, wow,
That
Do
is
not want to see
very,
this.
very, very interesting. Because that's Leopard with 10 seconds. What?
It was his AI holding up a Ferrari, but the Ferrari was also finished. And he was behind a Mercedes of which I suspect is Blackie. And wow. I don't know if they'll restart the lobby for that one.
Anyway, Otis on pole, Nick in second, Axe in third, fourth to Smokey, fifth to Leopard, sixth to PSR Wilson, seventh to Connor, Venom in eighth, ninth to Amin, and 2D rounding out the top 10 there. Choco in 11th with Piccolo 12th, Sizer 13th. He's not had the best of qualifyings there. Placky in 15th, 16th to Lucas, 17th to Bobbert, Savin 18th, unable to set a lap time as the same as third, and Vid Bob in 20th place there.
What an ending with Leopard there. I'm confused now, because do we restart the lobby for him, or do we just run with it? Because he is now down in 15th place.
That's gutting if it's the case that we, pardon me, don't restart. However, I'm sure we had a similar incident with Scyther a few weeks ago. Well, maybe it was last week when.
I do remember that actually, so I think I was here for one of those.
Yeah.
For that. Scyther did get a penalty unjustably.
Okay. Anyway, we're not sure.
I don't think we're restarting.
We'll let the powers that be decide this one, but there is certainly some discussions to have. But that's odd. I don't understand how Codemasters has been able to do this.
I don't understand how Leopard got one, but then the Mercedes in front of him didn't, because they were the same distance between Connor's, I think, well, one of the Ferraris, sorry, and Leopard, to what Leopard was with the Mercedes in a train. So I don't get how Leopard was the only one who got that. That's just Codemasters, isn't it? That's we are going to get underway, so I'll hand back over. Actually, I'll quickly give my top 3 predictions before we get underway. I'm going to go for an Otis win. That's a very bold prediction. I'm going to go for a Connor second and a Venom third. Just throw that up in the air.
Well, with 8 seconds to go, I don't know if, because it looks like there's some conversations going on, but we are going to see how this one winds down and see if it does actually happen. 2, 3, 4, 5 red lights here at Suzuka Circuit in Japan, and away we go. And I don't know if that's a really poor start from Connor. Pearson Nick, I think, has had a pretty decent start. There's someone in the wall in the background. Axe F1, and that is Connor. I think plenty of action going on. A yellow. Nope, that's Otis around. What on earth is going on?
Yeah, we're going to have a lobby restart, I think, here. Because about 10 drivers have been killed in the space of 5 seconds.
So, awesome. Let's go back to this screen, because this is a little bit more understanding about what's going on than people crashing out in the in qualified, and we'll wait and see. We'll give you a little bit more of a bit more time to expand on your top 3 answers for today's race.
All right. Well, I've gone for Otis because bold. I mean, he doesn't really win much, does he? In WR. But no, Otis does seem to be the most reasonable choice if we do have a dry race. He's just without the mixed conditions, he is unstoppable. I feel like around Japan today. But I mean, I went for Connor or Venom because I sort of just rushed and panicked a bit and didn't know who else to go for. But I mean, Connor's had some good pace over the last few races, and he's definitely within a shout for a podium all the time. But I reckon Venom could just be a surprise, you know. I did say we could be up for a surprise winner or podium sitter today, but yeah, I'm gonna go for Venom for that because I feel like he's not really had the best of seasons, and I feel like if anyone does something special, it'll be Venom.
Well, it's an interesting one. We are going to get the restart that has caused a little bit of controversy, but we love it here. The controversial side of things. However, I mean, there's so many drivers out there that can cause issues through the grid. I mean, if the if the stop doesn't work well for Otis, he can get himself caught into trouble, and maybe have maybe get himself caught like and the likes of Smokey or even Pierce on Nick, because Nick's got himself into a great position tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it could, a bad strategy call can throw it all up in the air at any point in any race. Because look at how it was in Mexico yesterday for Mercedes. They thought the mediums will fall off the cliff. They didn't. They went for the hards, and it didn't pay out. And I mean, if you go into, I mean, it's not so much of like that on the game, but that's mainly more about traffic on the game. Where if you come out in a train of about 3 cars and they're all battling for position, it's going to be hard to get through, and it can throw your whole race up in the air. So it's definitely going to play a big factor, traffic, especially around a circuit like this where the whole of the first sector, it does have its overtaking opportunities, but it is a lot of following through the first sector, and you have to wait sort of until the hairpin to really get that overtaking back underway.
Now, we'll try and figure a way of filling the void while we wait for the 20 drivers to fill the lobby. And you know what? I think Sider down in 13th place. Are we going to see him try and battle his way through the grid? Because, I mean, that's obviously what he's going to try and do. But he struggled a little bit last time out.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that, and yes, he did struggle last time. I mean, he's got nothing to lose at the moment, really, does he? So he can just go all out attack, and just see where it sort of brings him at the end. But yeah, he did struggle last time out, trying to climb up through the order. But I mean, it's a completely different track, this one. Singapore doesn't really have many overtaking opportunities if you think about it. Compared to here, so if he just pulls off the right strategy, he can be a good shout for a top 6 finish maybe, but it's going to be extremely difficult, especially with a lobby like this, to really gain as many places as possible.
Now, if you were a betting man, you've obviously would bet on Otis to win the race. However, who would be your dark horse for the race? Someone that if Otis crashed lap 1, who would you back to take victory here?
I wouldn't say he's a dark horse based on his qualifying position after his penalties have been removed, but I would go for Leopard. Because Leopard has amazing race pace. His quali pace it's not his strongest asset, but his race pace is definitely up there as one of the quickest on Xbox. And yeah, Leopard would definitely be my shout for the race win if Otis does either crash out or just something happens to him. And yeah, Leopard is definitely one of those drivers you should sort of fear when it comes to the race paces. He's just absolutely rapid on this game in that department. So, yeah, Leopard would be my dark horse.
Fair enough. I mean, Placky hasn't had the, last season he was up there battling away with, and the season before with the dizzy heights of, Ron Ha, Tom Manley, Alfie. Some of these races have gone on to make incredible scenes in the PC side of things, especially WR. When you talk about Ron Ha, he's esports challenger, absolutely incredible. Esports challenger, sorry. He's esports. He's incredible this season, taken a victory. He's graced his presence in WOR before these dizzy heights that he's in now. So it's odd to see Placky's pace just drop away a little bit, because people would have thought that he's the next one really to have it, but maybe it's the game. Maybe he just can't handle the game as well as the others.
That's literally what I was about to say. I was going to say I feel like Placky's not been able to get to grips as fast as everyone else, but I mean, I wouldn't count him out at all at any stage of any Grand Prix, because he is a very quick driver. Placky, he deserves a lot of credit for what he does, and I mean, it's a hard task being a teammate with Otis this season, so it's not like he's had an easier teammate. Don't want to sound too disrespectful, but an easier teammate to battle against. He's had the championship leaders to battle against. So I do feel like the difference in games has sort of shown he's sort of maybe limited adaptability and a bit slower adaptability to the games, but at the end of the day, he can still win a race. So as we actually are going to get back underway, I've sort of timed that perfectly, finishing off that Placky sentence.
Absolutely perfectly indeed, Steve, there. Just to remind people as well, obviously, Otis Lawrence producing a lap time of a 28 dead to get pole here tonight. And I think the last person on the grid to set a lap time, that was a 29, or was it 28.8 or 29.2? That makes for interesting reading if it's either one, to be honest. But we did have 3 drivers unable to set a lap time. Finn Bulb was one of them because his lap time, reversing the wrong way or driving the wrong way, he got disqualified in qualifying. So that's an interesting one in itself. We should be getting underway in a little under 3 minutes' time for the full race. And while we wait for that, let's go down. Let's speak about the top 3 of last time. Obviously, Wilson's, Otis Lawrence and Smokey. Only, the 4th time this season Otis Lawrence has has failed to win a race. And that in itself, in 10 rounds, is an absolutely incredible stat.
Yeah, it's an amazing stat. I mean, it's near enough Max Verstappen this season's sort of dominance. I mean, the only things that really have stopped...
Did FRA break the cost cap?
That is a good shout, Otis this season is going to be the Mercedes next season after they misinterpret the cost cap for 2023. So, but no, I mean, he is just absolutely insane at this game. I mean, he was quick coming near the end of the last game, but this is just a whole nother level for Otis this game, I feel like, and he's definitely proved himself to be one of the quickest on Xbox. But I mean, the only things that have stopped him this season is a quali ban in Britain, and then 2 mixed condition races where he's gone on the wrong strategy, but sort of the right one at the same time. Because that Singapore last time out, he would have finished 3rd if he'd come into the pit lane properly. But he actually managed to get 2nd, just about ahead of Smokey. But I mean, I don't see anyone stopping him today, but you never know, it's racing, anything can happen.
Well, unfortunately, there's no rain for us here in Suzuka to spice things up a little bit. We'll have to let the drivers do all their own spicing tonight. And unfortunately, I sent the line out. I sent the fishing rod out to see if I could catch any haters of the cost cap, but nothing happened on that one. So we'll wait and see. It was a shame, but good response from you though, Steve. Much appreciated on that one. But again, sticking with your top three of Otis, Nick, and Connor. Was that right?
It was Connor and Venom. But
Connor
yeah,
and
I'm
Venom.
sticking with that.
Sticking
I'm going
with that
for
one.
it. Why not?
Why not, indeed. We wait for the lights. We've got 2, 3, 4, 5 red lights in here in WR Suzuka Grand Prix, and away we go. It looks like it's a poor start from Smokey in the background. Oh, sorry, is that Axe in the background? Smokey's had an absolute cracker of a start. So is Connor, who's going through there as well. Leopard's up into P4 by the looks of things in the background. This is exactly what Axe did not want to happen. He's managed to get back in front of Connor. Connor must have had a slow second stage of that because he was already around the outside. Amin is into the wall. Is this going to cause an early safety car? There's Sav and Fern also having trouble in the background, but the two Ferraris still fighting neck and neck, and Scyther desperately trying to get through as well, with Bobbitt's trying to get past Placky in the background. So all the action happening towards the back of the grid at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, the back of the grid, they're probably more nothing to lose. Why not just go for it? And it's sort of shown there as the likes of Finn, Bob, Fern, and Sav all getting caught up in an incident there with Amin, and that has put the end to Amin's race. And the others can't be counted out yet due to safety cars. Placky and P15 at the moment, as we sort of start to settle down around Japan, about halfway through the lap due to the Dageners getting in the way. But Otis having a good start, to be fair, but Axe certainly not what he wanted after a very promising qualifying, now dropping down behind the two Alpines and the Red Bull with Smokey. But he's got 27 laps to make that back up, so it's not like the race is over. He still has time to make it back up, but it'll be a very hard task to do, especially against the likes of the three in front of him.
Well, Nick is doing something quite incredible right now, and that is sticking to the back end of Otis Lawrence. Not many drivers have been able to do that this season, and you know what? PSR Sav's retired. Fern's getting a penalty in the pit lane, so is Finn Bob. We're losing a lot of drivers. I say we're losing a lot. We've lost 2 drivers. The other 2 are going to stick it out for the time being. But PSR Nick is doing a phenomenal job. Smokey trying to keep up with his teammate, but not happening at the moment. And this is exactly kind of falling into Leopard's plan, because he's able to push forward a little bit.
Yeah, that is sort of helping Leopards as he's got Axe out the way off the start, and he's now got Smokey, who's not going to pace with his teammates, so he could drop out the DRS of Nick anytime soon, and then he'll just have the DRS against the Red Bull in front, and then I reckon he has the pace to sort of catch back up to Nick if Smokey does drop out of the DRS, because as I said, Leopard has immense race pace, and he's probably someone to look out for. Look, Smokey's dropped the DRS already at the moment. I think he's lacking a bit of straight line speed as the Red Bull compared to his teammates. But Leopard surely should be able to get past Smokey very shortly, probably on this lap once he goes back down the main straight due to the DRS being enabled now. But Nick still staying within the DRS of Otis Lawrence, which we don't see often about someone sticking within Otis's DRS, and if he can hang on to that, definitely within a good shout of a race win today.
Yeah, I mean, Otis Lawrence is going to want to do everything he can to take the victory, but Nick is, this is great from Nick, doing something that not very many people have been able to do, and that is stand up to the Mercedes driver for long periods of time. But it's only been 3 laps, so we'll wait and see how it all pans down. Leopard losing a little bit of time to Smokey. Smokey starting to push the gap a little bit, but he's still falling quite a distance away from his teammate and the race leader, which is not exactly what anyone outside of the top 2 want. They want to be right in the mix of the battle. PSR Wilson losing a bit of ground to his teammate as well. So a lot of drivers really looking at this as a little bit of a DRS a DRS train right now, but and ERS, to be perfectly honest. But that gap between second and third could be costly to Smokey.
Yeah, it certainly could be. I mean, he's leading this train at the moment, and that's something you don't really want to do. As is a good 14 drivers, behind you with the RS, and as soon as one gets by, sometimes it causes a chain reaction. As actually here comes Leopard down the inside of Smokey into turn one, easy as you like, before the braking zone even happened, got the move done. So it's once you get overtaken by one driver, it can set off a chain reaction where you just slowly start dropping down the order. But I reckon with Smokey's a very quick driver, I don't think that chain reaction will work as well. He might drop down behind Wilson, but I mean the pace levels are sort of similar between them two, so I feel like Smokey will keep that P4. But as Leopard within that DRS of Nick, and what did I say after Smokey drops out? Leopard will catch back up, and he already has. So now that DRS train is the whole of the top 16.
Scyther seeming to lose ground to VSR Finn down in 11th place as it's not working perfectly out for him. But look, as you quite rightly have mentioned, it's quite interesting from a Leopard point of view how quick he has been in the race pace, because he's been dispatched by Smokey. He's dispatched Smokey and he's just gone onto another level.
Yeah, he's just bolted away. He's already near enough out of the DRS. He just needs that half attempt to really make sure he's well clear of Smokey at the moment. But they're already up to the back of Nick. Smokey was a good 1.3, 1.4 behind. So get to gaining those like 0.4 of a second with Nick having DRS himself. It's just unreal. Leopard has always been one of the best at race pace. I mean, this season he's struggled a bit in the qualifying, which really hasn't helped him in that race department, having to try get past so many drivers. But today he's only had to he's got past two already that he was in front of him. He now needs to just get past Nick and Otis, which is a bit of a harder challenge, I reckon, because they're all roughly the same pace at the moment. No one really too much slower than the other, but we could certainly have a battle between the top three on our hands today.
Yeah, Leopard, he seems to be much quicker in that middle part of the track, the two Degners and Dunlop and everything really, S-curves, Sector 1 and the beginning of Sector 2. He seems to be much, much quicker. Nick now falling away from Otis Lawrence. The fastest man on the track is LCR Leopard. He did set that fastest lap on that last lap, and yeah, appears on Nick dropping away from Otis Lawrence. It could be a case that Otis Lawrence has won this as early as this.
You could say that, but I mean, Leopard's pace could play a factor. But it's well too early to call at the minute. You never know what's going to happen, especially around a circuit like this where one mistake you're either off the circuit or in the wall. So it's definitely not all over yet, but Otis is in the prime position to really get this race win, breaking that DRS, and if he carries on that momentum, to be fair, it will get further and further away at Leopard, so he don't want to be stuck behind Nick any longer if he wants any chance of winning this Grand Prix. As you can see that Otis is actually just really quick. Nick really is struggling through this middle sector because Nick has gained back through that first sector, which maybe could be downforce related, where Nick might have a bit more downforce on, just like his teammate Smokey, and because Sector 2 is so straight line dependent, that could be a big factor into why he's losing the DRS in that middle sector but gaining it back in the first sector where there is no DRS.
You do feel like that could very well be more of a quali setup more than a race setup, because in the race, surely you want the downforce, you want the speed, you want everything to you on a straight, because right now Leopard is catching through all the DRS, through all the straight lines, and you look at how close he is as they enter the start-finish straight. I don't know if it's going to be enough this time around to attack Nick, but he's always getting so much closer. I think Nick must be deploying so much through that start-finish straight at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, they're roughly same ERS at the moment, but that Alpine is going to get ever larger in those Red Bull's mirrors, and we should surely see an attempted overtake very, very shortly, as that's Placky and Finn. No, just Placky, Bobberts and Lucas all getting caught up in an incident there, so that reduces the DRS trainers Lucas and Bobberts. Well, I know Lucas has a bit of front wing damage. Bobberts is okay. What about Placky? He is okay visually as well. But back up to the top three, I mean, with Nick being this defensive and maybe this slow, it's actually brought back Smokey into this battle as Leopard dispatch him, but because of how slow Nick is at the moment compared to Leopard, it's just pushing him back into that train further and further.
Yeah, and that's not really what Leopard would want. He will also want Wilson to be close by to cause Smokey some trouble, so Leopard could worry about Nick more than Smokey. But through 130R they come into the Casio Triangle. Can Leopard get close enough on the exit? I don't think he's going to be able to on this time around. Yeah, he was much closer last lap, but Smokey, on the other hand, is closing slowly on Leopard. I don't think it's going to be enough again. The DRS is open for both of them, and they come down into turn one, and the positions stay the same. Wilson unable to really mount much of an attack onto Smokey. Wilson's struggling a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, I feel like he really is. I mean, he's at one point going into 130R, he had no battery left at all. It was on 0%. So maybe just struggling with a bit of the aerodynamics or just the tyres in general. I know some drivers do feel a lot more comfortable later on in the race on those softer tyres at the end of the medium. So it's sort of unusual to see Wilson struggling though, because we did see last time out he was quite comfortable on the hards, but then to be fair, he was quite rapid at the end of the race. So we'll see what happens. I mean, it's all to play for still. Lap 8 of 27. It can still come back in Wilson's favour at any point during this race. So, but as I say, the more and more Nick holds up these drivers, the more and more the likes of Smokey and Leopard fall back into that DRS train. So it's still not all over yet for Wilson, but Leopard all over the back of Nick going into the final chicane.
Yeah, let's look at it from Leopard's perspective. He's close to the back end of that Red Bull. Does he do anything? He's got a great launch out of the exit of that Nick, but I don't think it's going to be enough to stop Leopard. He goes to the inside, and it's a simple move like he did against his Nick's teammate not too many laps ago, and that's Leopard into P2, 1.2 seconds behind race leader and championship leader Otis Lawrence. And let's see now what LCR Leopard can do in comparison to all this. He just seems to have that edge on everyone else. It will be interesting to see what sort of edge, if any, he has on Otis Lawrence.
Yeah, it'll be certainly interesting to see. As I mean, I'm actually got the little dashboard up that you get on the game, and it actually says that Leopard is down on fuel, and I don't really believe that, as Otis Lawrence is on the exact same amount of fuel pretty much, but 0.1 higher up on the fuel load there. So I don't actually believe that Leopard is down on fuel at this stage, but you never know. He might have underfueled and it might bite him back later into the race, but we'll see, as he's actually gained about 1/10 of a second so far. But look at Otis' straight line speed. He's just gained 2/10 down one straight. It's unreal, Otis down the straights, and he's definitely gone for a bit, maybe so much more less downforce compared to Leopard, but Leopard gets fastest lap of the race anyway, so he's definitely on a charge at the moment.
He certainly is Leopard, but he doesn't seem to be able to do too much. I think Nick's made a mistake out of the exit of turn 1 because he's lost 0.3 of a second from somewhere. It's now 0.4. Leopard is pulling away, and that could be, well, vital for Leopard and his battle for P2, but also vital for the battle for P3 because Pearsall Wilson has dropped away from Smokey. So all of a sudden, little gaps are forming here, and we could see some, well, obviously some break between these, but maybe a little bit of teamwork coming in from the Red Bull to try and get themselves back up to LCR.
Yeah, it could definitely bring in that sort of factor of teamwork, but Leopard's actually dropped a good 4 attempts there on Nick. He's must have made a mistake as well, but Nick made a mistake clipping the inside curb on the second part of turn 1. It just sort of sent the car into a bit of an oversteer, which really lost him that time. But Leopards seems to be struggling now, so it's like once you get behind Otis, you start to struggle. Maybe because you're trying to push too hard to catch up, but yeah, Leopard not going as quickly as we thought he would. As here comes Nick, maybe down the inside of turn 1. Is he close enough? No, he's not. Just too far back, and they've actually left Smokey in the dust a bit there through down that straight. Because Smokey has higher downforce, probably gains that all back up in this first sector.
It's really interesting because Leopard seems to be able to hold his own a little bit. But Pearsall Nick, I think Leopard may have made... Otis might have made a mistake through Sector 1. But Nick, I don't think Leopard made a mistake at any point in that lap. Nick just found some pace. And to go back to what you mentioned in qualifying, is you can find time at any point in this race.
Yeah, I mean, I did say that. As I said, I didn't know if Leopard made a mistake or not, but yeah, you literally can find time through any little kink or curve around this circuit. That's what makes it one of the most fascinating races to watch, because you can be a good 0.6 behind someone, and then you get a really good corner, and you're within 3 or 2 tenths. So it's all about your runs and how you take the corner differently to someone else. It's such a brilliant circuit on that aspect, where it's got multiple lines through some of the corners, that if you take one line you're quicker, and it can help you defend. As here comes Nick now down the straight, just like what Leopard did to him about 3-4 laps ago, and easily before the brakes were put on, ahead and back up into P2. But maybe we could see some teamwork between these two now to try and catch up to Otis.
That seems to be what really, if they want to get anywhere in this race, Leopard and Nick need to work together. As quick and as good as Smokey is, I don't think he has the out-and-out pace like these two drivers have right now. Because Leopard, before being re-overtaken for second place by Nick, looking very, very strong. And Nick in himself just seems quick anyway.
Yeah. I mean, Smokey's all over the back of Leopard at the moment, but that could have been due to that he had DRS in the first sector where Leopard didn't. But actually, Leopard might start to be feeling a bit of crying from the tyres, as he is losing a bit of time. Such I think that's Lucas round in turn 1, so nothing overly too important to bring out. They need to fix that. It's been on the game for so long where if someone spins at turn 1, it basically brings out a yellow flag for the whole track. So, but Leopards, it might be struggling a bit now. Maybe took too much out of the tyres. You can see on Leopard's right front, he has got a bit of graining starting to happen, and everyone else is sort of not as bad as Leopard. So maybe push those tyres just a tad bit too hard, and might be starting to feel the repercussions of that him pushing.
He's been sat in more close quarter. I'm trying to think of the right way. Close quarter battling than most of the others. He has been giving us the most action, trying to get through other drivers. He's doing a Danny Rick for us. He's just not flipped an Alpha Tauri so far. Sider's popped into the pits. He's gone early for his medium, so he's going to try and do a little bit of an undercut to get himself through the field. He did make his way up into P10, but really I don't think these guys will be going into the pits until the leaders, that is, till lap 15, maybe 16.
Yeah, I think that is the optimal strategy around Japan. I mean, it could be any point, because the undercut I think is actually quite powerful around here due to the amount of braking zones and traction zones there are. So it's going to be all down to strategy at the moment. I mean, Otis isn't actually safe from getting put into traffic if some drivers stay out. So, I mean, we could maybe see a strategic blunder from one of these top 4 drivers as Wilson comes into the pit lane now to box onto the mediums. So now it's all about undercuts, overcuts, and the complete strategy in general. We've gone from the real sort of side-by-side action, and it's now all strategic and mental strategy and what to do with the car over the next few laps.
Yeah, I think, well, I think Wilson's gone into the pits obviously early, but maybe he's doing this. Maybe he's doing this to help Leopard, because that's going to throw Smokey to think, should I push Nick to go into the pits early? Leopard's obviously still got some pace about him, but he is dropping a little bit. And maybe Leopard's gone, you know what, I want to pit lap 14. And Wilson's gone, I don't think I can go to lap 15, so I'm going now. I think Wilson's very much playing a team game out of the 2 drivers right now. But Leopard is finding weird times or weird areas to gain some time to pierce our Nick ahead. But he is very much in a Red Bull sandwich right now, and that's not the nicest place to be. Otis still 1.4 seconds in the lead, and like you quite rightly mentioned, if people stay out, he could be in trouble of a little bit of a traffic jam.
Yeah, he certainly could be. I mean, as the Leopard and Nick both come in now, so Leopard's undercut not going to be working if he was going to try for one, but you never know what will happen in the pit lane, as some drivers might hold up Nick actually now, but no, he comes out in the perfect little gap there. But Leopard, yeah, out behind the Red Bull, so I want to see where actually Wilson comes out compared to this battle. As he now heads down the main straight, I think he'll be just behind them. Yes, he will. So he actually has gained time at the moment, I think, on his teammate and Nick up in front, and they'll still have to warm up their tyres. So Smokey could actually be in a bit of trouble here with the strategy, as it seems that Wilson has gained quite a bit of time on those fresher mediums.
Yeah, great little strategy call there from Wilson. Maybe this was the Alpine's plan all along, because he's right up against Leopard again. And maybe this will help Leopard attack Nick, because obviously he kept on having to worry about the Smokey behind and what he would do. I think Otis Lawrence might be safe from Leopard and Nick, but that's another thing to worry about. You know, how long will he go? And if he doesn't pit this lap, does that put him into trouble with Nick and Leopard? I mean, it's something I'm sure you and I would love to see. Otis Lawrence battling away with Leopard and Nick to, well, just show a little bit more, or showcase a little bit more of his talent.
Yeah, it certainly would be an interesting one if he did stay out a bit longer. But to be fair, with the amount of time that Wilson gained on Leopard and Nick, I wouldn't be too far-fetched to say that Nick could be within the DRS of Otis, maybe at the end of this lap, if the tyres don't warm up that quickly for Otis. And it seems that Smokey does come out ahead of Wilson, so we were wrong there actually, and Wilson still behind Smokey, so that undercut not working, and Nick through this first sector while Otis warms up his tyres within the DRS, and that surely should stay for the rest of the lap, because Otis's tyres, until about the hairpin that we're going to come up to after the 2 Degners, are going to be a bit chilly and not in the optimal working window.
Now this is turning out to be quite a race. Smokey obviously slower because of the colder tyres. So he's going to be battling with Wilson for a few laps, but he's 1.4 seconds away from the top three who are battling away for the race lead here. Lap 16 of 27, and Otis Lawrence could be under threat from these two guys. Leopard has found some incredible pace for this race. He's always had incredible race pace, but today he's just turned it up another notch. PSR Nick has come out of nowhere for this and has done an incredible job, and he's chasing, but he's just not close enough to Otis Lawrence at the end of 130R, but it's 0.3 of a second to separate the both of them, and they're going to go into go down the start-finish straight, where PSR Nick is going to throw everything, the kitchen sink, to try and take the lead of this Grand Prix, but I don't think it's going to be enough. He's gaining as he goes down the start-finish straight, but he's just not going to be close enough on this occasion, and Leopard dropping away a little bit, probably because he knew Nick was going to be battling and throwing everything he can at that Mercedes.
I feel like Nick could have used a bit more ERS on that one, because if he had to get that move done, it would have had to have been then. It's the only real opportunity you can get with Otis after the pit stops, where you're all over the back of him, and you need to make that move. So I feel like Nick might have played that a tiny bit too safe to try and think about the long run, where if I was in Nick's shoes personally, I would have went for it, because you're battling for P1 at the end of the day. You're against a driver that's as quick as anything, and he sort of wasted his one and only opportunity there, because look, he's already out of the DRS once more, so that was the only chance he was going to get this whole race to get past Otis, and he sort of blew it, but I reckon if he used a bit more ERS, he could put Otis under a bit more pressure, but I reckon Otis would have kept that position anyway. But it's always worth the fight.
Always worth something. I feel like he wanted a Senna Prost moment into turn one. Those two taking each other out and let an LCR Leopard go and take the victory. But Otis Lawrence is the fastest man on the track. A 130.5 for the Mercedes driver, as PSR Nick now has LCR Leopard for company. Venom and Choco swapping positions just in the far picture there. And Choco's getting himself up past both Ferrari drivers here. He's had a hell of a race in this second half, but while we've been concentrating on these top four drivers, and Smokey's got himself back into the swing of things. PSR Wilson unable to do exactly like PSR Nick on Otis. Wilson unable to hold up or make a move on the Red Bull driver of Smokey.
Yeah, that's not really what Leopard wanted. Wilson dropping out of the DRS of Smokey and not really being able to make a move on the Red Bull in front of him. And I mean, Choco, he has had the best race if you go off positions gained in the top 10. It's up 4. So he's had a quite quiet but good race so far. So expect to see that Haas climbing up a few more positions before the end of this race, maybe getting past the likes of Axe and Wilson, maybe if he gets his head down and pushes hard enough. But Smokey now gonna try help his teammate and put Leopard under a bit of pressure. So I sort of feel like Leopard might do the same as he did at the end of the last stint, and maybe just be a bit too far out of reach from overtaking Nick into turn 1. And mainly going to be focusing on just keeping this podium, I reckon.
Yeah, that's probably Leopard's best play right now, unless there is a late safety car. We've had one of those in the past, haven't we? At the moment, the driver's really struggling as Vaki, Finbob and Lucas, they are way off the pace at the moment because of their incidents they've had. Bobbitt's as well, I think 4 seconds away from the Aston Martin duo of Tudi and Piccolo. With VSR Finn 2.1 seconds away from Sider, who's holding that last point scoring position. But we're on lap 19 of 27, and we have yet to have, I was going to say yet to have a penalty, but Bobbitt's does have a penalty. Yet to have a penalty in the top 10, which is great to see. Obviously, we never like a driver picking up a penalty at any stage in the race, but I mean, looking at the top four, well, second to fourth, do you see it staying like this, or on the last few laps, do you think Nick is going to deploy some mind games and some strategy calls to bring his teammate into the mix?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe I reckon it will get a lot more spicier within the last 4 or 5 laps, to be precise. To really try help Smokey get ahead of Leopard, but you never know. Nick could just have an absolutely massive turn in pace and start attacking Otis near the end. We don't know what will happen. A late safety car could come out, but I'm actually surprised we've not had a safety car yet, because it's Japan. It's very close between going off the circuit and staying on it. So yeah, I'm actually quite surprised we've not seen one so far. We have had a few retirements and a few incidents, but overall, it's been quite a clean race from Tier 1 today, and it's a good thing that you want to see in this sort of tier of racing.
Yeah, it's exactly what I want to see. Good, clean racing at the top level, but you do like a bit of controversy at times. Just well, it's just one of those things, isn't it? You know, where would life be without controversy, especially when it comes to league racing? But Leopard at the moment unable to do anything to Nick's, I say, dominance in P2. But yeah, considering the whole season's about how Otis has been dominant and pulling away, he's on lap 20. He's only 1.4 seconds away from these guys. These guys have really closed up the gap for this track. It could be track dependent, but they've done a phenomenal job.
Yeah, they really have. I don't really want to take it too much away from the likes of Nick and Leopard, but as we keep saying, this track you can find so much time from doing different lines, but I mean, you could do that around any circuit. And Otis has still pulled a good 10-12 second gap by this point. So, you know what? Fair play to the likes of Nick, Leopard and Smokey. Well, to everyone, actually, because they've not really let Otis get too far ahead. If you think about it, compared to usual. So, yeah, they've been keeping their head down, trying to crack on with it. And just unfortunately, Otis, they have closed the gap, but he's just too far out of reach, I reckon. Unless he makes a huge mistake somewhere. And it'll be another win, probably, for the Mercedes, but you never know what will happen in the last few laps of this Grand Prix. As I mean, it's racing. Everything can be... a curveball can be thrown at any point during the race.
So, Leopard getting closer to Nick than we've seen in a long time. Is he going to do anything at the end of 130R? I think he's going to wait until the start-finish straight. It's 0.2 of a second at the moment as they head into the Casio Triangle, who really needs a good exit out of this. Let's see what sort of exit Nick can hold. It's not a very good one in comparison between the two of them. Nick struggled a little bit out of that. The curb was much more taken by Leopard, but he's not gaining down the straight. That was very odd, considering you would have expected the Alpine just to fly past at that sort of stage.
Yeah, I mean, he had the DRS open, and of course, with these regulations of cars, the DRS is a lot weaker on this game. But I think Nick did use a bit of his deployment, but Leopard just weren't using anything. He was just sitting behind him. So maybe thinking of the long run, which could be quite important. Maybe going to think about getting him on the final lap, but that's always a risk versus reward strategy, doing that, trying to get someone on the final lap, because it might not even pay off. So, I mean, Leopard will know what he's doing better than anyone, so, I mean, he's still very close to Nick at the moment, but I was actually expecting him just to fly past, get that P2, and maybe try shoot off up the road and try catch up to Otis once more, but didn't happen, and he sat behind Nick once more.
Looking at the ERS usage between the two of them, Nick is at 60%, Leopard down to 30%.
that is. I mean, you could say that sometimes you could say that shows a bit less of pace from one driver to another, but sometimes it could just show one being a bit more aggressive than the other, and really just finding that time. As Smokey's now drops out the DRS, but everyone uses their ERS differently. It's a completely strategic area of this game, which has sort of become a bit more strategic over recent years, over the new, where you have to press a button, where you used to just toggle through certain settings. As I said, Choco would get past Axe. Axe has actually made a mistake and spun round, but Choco ups to P6. I did say look out for the Haas moving up positions, maybe from a mistake from Axe, but he's still got the position. And I did actually see the two Ferraris switch places as well, so it's been a bit uneventful from about 6th place to about 10th, but still they've been having their quiet own little race. It's been clean, it's been good, and this top 3 battle still raging on, and Smokey back within that DRS, so he still isn't out of it just yet.
No, he's not, but look how much closer Leopard is at this time of asking. Is he just... This could be another thing Leopard is doing. He could be putting Nick under so much pressure to to get Nick to make a mistake. This time around, he's got a perfect launch. There's a car coming out of the pits. He's coming down the start-finish straight, but again, there's just not enough track. There's not enough road there for Leopard to make the move. But I'm looking at the curbs that Leopard decides he thinks he's safer at taking in comparison to Nick, and they're taking different lines. Leopard is so much happier taking certain curbs, and I think that was a little bit of a mistake there for Nick out of Dunlop. But you can see, Declan 1, Leopard takes as much of the apex as possible, but Nick doesn't. And then it's the other way round for Declan 2.
Yeah, it's all about ride height. To be fair, there's so many on this game, and the games have recently setups are the main thing that finds you pace. If you have a default setup, you're going to be nowhere. If you have what the game gives you, you're going to be absolutely nowhere. But I mean, the ride height really does show about the differences in how much curb usage they can take. So maybe Nick running a bit of a lower ride height, which does affect him over some curbs compared to the Leopard. But I don't know, it's all coming down to the wire at the moment. Lap 24, which would be 25 as Otis crosses the line of 27. 3 laps to go, and this battle for 2nd place is heating up, and Leopard not going for it this time. So yeah, he's just going to be waiting until that final lap probably.
This is going to be interesting. I think maybe even Nick's trying to purposely slow down, because look at that, 2.7 seconds now between Otis Lawrence and Nick. Maybe Nick is deploying every trick in the book to get the podium to Smokey. Like I mentioned earlier, could be a possibility. And I asked if you thought that might be a thing as well, Steve. I'm not sure if it's still going to be a thing. But Choco picking up a 3-second time penalty is going to bring Connor into the mix for points, higher points, possibly right now. But just imagine if PSR gets a penalty right now, PSR Nick gets a penalty right now, that would be absolutely heartbreaking for him, because he would drop probably back down to P5.
That would be absolutely gut-wrenching for him. He's had such a brilliant race defensively and attacking wise. He's been so calm and composed under all this pressure that Leopard's given to him, showing why these drivers are the best on the platform. And it really does seem that Leopard's may be getting held up here. I do feel like the two Red Bull drivers are working well as a team, or for that P3 from Leopard. And I don't know, he got one more lap after this with the DRS, what does Leopard, so maybe he's just going to save for this whole lap to try and use as much as possible and get that move. He just needs to not make a mistake now, and he shall probably get P2 unless Nick does the defensive driving of his life. And I wouldn't count that out because he is in a Red Bull. If he's in Sergio Perez's Red Bull, he can certainly extend the width of that car to make it the widest car on the circuit.
I mean, you do have to wonder whether Leopard would make a move at a different point in the track to get past Nick without the DRS, because that could be the other thing. Placky's retired from the session. He's gone into the pits, hopefully, to do that. But it also does look like the dot has stopped on it, so that's an interesting one. Yellow flag in Sector 3, but here comes Leopard again. I don't think he's going to be close enough down the back straight. They head into 130R. There is another car. This could be crucial to PSR Nick. He started to get close again to Otis Lawrence, and that could be crucial to Nick to keep him ahead of Leopard as they go down the start-finish straight. Lucas's car could have cost Leopard a P2.
And I think it has. That's just given Nick a lifeline because I think he now has DRS down this straight, and he does. So that 6th, 10th gap will not come down much more than what it already is at, and I reckon Leopard would be raging at Lucas's car there. And I mean, he did lose a bit of time actually after. I think he locked up into the hairpin before Spoon Curve, and it sort of lost him a bit of time. But Nick's been handed a lifeline against Leopard there, and yeah, that surely settles that debate for P2. But Leopard could still come under threat here from Smokey through the on this last lap, as Leopard's tyres not seeming in the best conditions right now, and Smokey all over the diffuser of that Alpine.
Yeah, not ideal for Leopard at all, because he's dropped massively away from PSR Nick. Nick's got away. He's used that AlphaTauri, the sister car to the Red Bull. Is there a conspiracy theory? Is it a ghoulish mistake? We don't know. It is Halloween after all. Anything's possible. But maybe Leopard is going to use all the DRS, everything to his advantage just to help that keep himself ahead of Smokey. I'm sure it's going to happen, but it would be very amiss of me not to go on board with Otis Lawrence as he's going to come home across the line for the 7th time this season. A WOR race winner. Around 11 is his, as that's a Red Bull crashing across the start-finish line. That is PSR Nick, I'm certain of it, with Leopard in 3rd and 4th going to Smokey. What a race. Choco will come home in P8 after that penalty. He will be gutted. But PSR Connor finishing 6th ahead of his teammate Axe. After that mistake he made, will finish 9th, and 10th going to Sider. And that's your top 10. And what a race in the sense of a tactical masterclass from Otis Lawrence, but also PSR Nick to keep Leopard at at arm's reach.
Yeah, I mean, Otis, brilliant drive from him, and yeah, Nick doing everything he possibly could there to keep Leopard at bay. And then Lucas, he was about to be lapped at the perfect time for Nick there. If it was any earlier in the lap, he would have been maybe a bit more screwed defensively, but he's done brilliantly to cope under all that pressure. And I did say earlier on that Leopard leaving it till the final lap, it's risk versus reward, and the risk did not bring out the reward he wanted. And yeah, it was always a risky strategy to play, and he didn't get dealt the right cards.
He definitely didn't. I will ask for your driver of the day, please, Steve, because that was an interesting one. I think the chat are saying Leopard. Do you agree on that one?
Yeah, I would say either Leopard or Nick, driver of the day. They both, or even Choco. He had a good race until the penalty, but yeah, I would go for Nick, because he had to deal with a lot of pressure from Leopard, and he withstood it. And yeah, I know he started second and finished second, but he still had to withstand all that pressure from Leopard. Didn't crumble at all, and he just drove how he normally would probably in that situation, and he didn't crumble under any pressure at all.
So Otis from Nick from Leopard, that's your podium, with Smokey in 4th, 5th to Wilson, Connor in 6th, 7th going to Venom, Choco in 8th, Axe in 9th, 10th going to Cider, with, we won't go through the rest of the grid, not because we don't love them, but because it's running out of time on there, and I wouldn't have been able to say all their names in time. But unlike you, I'm gonna give Leopard the driver of the day from my side, just because he gave us some action, some well needed action as well at some points in that race, because it felt a little bit, and that's no disrespect to the guys out there. Usually Japan is quite an interesting track to race around, get some overtakes, but they all seem so close on points, on pace.
Yeah, it was so close that they couldn't actually get past each other pretty much most of the time. So, yeah, without Leopard, it could have been a bit more of a, I wouldn't say snooze fest, but a bit more lackluster for Japan standards. But, I didn't have a safety car, which is, if you want to, you can see that as a plus, because we had a clean race, to be fair. Not really too many controversial incidents and things going to the stewards. There'll only be about 3 or 4 incidents, I reckon, going to the stewards there. So, to be fair, a pretty nice, decent race from everyone today. Probably one of the cleanest races of the season that I've actually seen so far.
Yeah, it's great to see drivers giving respect to each other as well. But we will wait and see if anyone will come into the comms box. I don't think they will today, Steve. I don't know what we said. Whether maybe we're too frightening for them. Maybe we don't have the right masks on today. I'm not 100% sure. But going forward, whether you're here or not next week. Looking at what you've seen tonight, it's Abu Dhabi. Is it anything other than an Otis Lawrence win there as well, do you think?
It's going to be a lot harder for Otis, actually, because it is a sprint next week. So either me or Ryan or Callum will be commentating over that with you. But yeah, it will be a lot harder for Otis, and Abu Dhabi's actually quite. The revamp really has brought a bit more life to that circuit in general. So it's going to be a very difficult one for Otis, and we'll see what happens. It's going to be close. I think he can clinch the title next time out. I don't actually know. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one. But it's gonna be. I reckon it will be as close as this again, gap-wise to Otis, because Abu Dhabi it's a track like Japan, where different lines gain you different amount of time around most corners. To be fair, so it's going to be all to play for next week, I reckon.
So, if Otis Lawrence is to be crowned champion next week, he needs 19-point deficit over. Is it Smokey in P2, or is it? Yeah, Smokey in P2.
Yeah, Smokey.
So that's an interesting one in itself. So all it takes is Smokey to have a terrible race, and then boom, all of a sudden he's got to be. I imagine he gets disqualified through qualifying, and he can't set a lap time, and he's got to fight his way through the grid. Got to get, I think, a minimum of P6, 7. Off the top of my head, I can't think of points.
About 6th or 7th.
But then, like you mentioned as well, there's the whole sprint race. Is it impossible? Is it impossible? Is it possible for? Yeah, it is obviously possible. But are we going to see Otis Lawrence take the championship with 3 rounds remaining. That would be a great sight to see in one hand, but in another hand, it just, maybe the dominance era we weren't expecting.
Yeah, I mean, the sprint could actually help him in that way of getting those points that he needs, because only the top 8 get points in the sprint. So, if he wins that, he gets 8 points added to his championship total. And if, as you say, if Smokey gets disqualified and the sprint's only 10 laps long, so he's got 10 laps to make up a good 12 positions in that sprint. So it's going to be a tough one for both drivers, but we'll see what happens. And but Otis has been so dominant this year and this season that it does seem impossible to sort of stop his dominance on this Xbox side at all so far this season. And he's not finished out the top 5 still in the rounds that we've had. So it's just so consistent from Otis, and it's unreal to believe.
He has been absolutely incredible. Now, I think we're not going to have podiums podium history reviews or any questions from any of those guys this week, unfortunately. So I guess that is it. Any final words for the guys out there, please, Steve?
I mean, thank you for watching, everyone. But yeah, hopefully have a good race next week. Make sure to tune into all the other tiers throughout the week on the Twitch and the YouTube. I think Legacy Division's on Friday still. I don't know if it's a break week or not. But yeah, just make sure to tune into everything else this week. And yeah, thank you very much for having me in the comms box.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Ryan 2.0, or as other people know him, Steve. It's been great to have you alongside me again this week, and it's 2 weeks on the bounce, and hopefully we'll get to work with each other again soon. From myself, it's been a very intriguing race to learn some more about the strategy side from these guys, because really that's what this race was all about. It was just a massive chess game, but it doesn't mean that the other tiers are going to be like this at all. I envisage plenty of action for the rest of the tiers in WOR. Please check out the Twitter, which is World Online Racing, when you get a chance to get all the information on what racing is where, and also join the Discord. But for now, for myself and Steve, thank you so much for watching. I will see you at the Legacy Division on Friday, but I'll also be here back next week for the Abu Dhabi sprint race and feature race, which is going to be absolutely cracking. Goodbye.